What is up, guys? Zach Ginn here, and in today's video, I'm going to go over actually how to fill out a purchase and sale agreement. Yes, those contracts for real estate wholesaling, so we know what to do when we're trying to put a property under contract. And also, I'm going to go over exactly how to fill out the assignment of contracts too. But before I get into it, you already know you need to smash that like button and subscribe to get more free value from me. Remember, guys, I'm trying to help you make your first $100,000 in real estate wholesaling absolutely for free. So I'm super excited for this video. Heavily requested, I actually share how I fill out my real estate wholesaling contracts because I give out thousands and thousands of copies of my free wholesaling contract, and I feel kind of bad. I don't think I went over actually how to fill these things out. So in today's video, we're going to get into it. But remember, guys, I'm not a lawyer, financial advisor, CPA. I'm none of those things. I'm not a realtor. I'm just a real estate wholesaler. So take it with a grain of salt what I say. Everything here is for educational or informational purposes. And remember, I'm not a lawyer here. So this is just how me as a real estate wholesaler fills out my contracts. So really quickly, you might ask yourself, Zach, how do I get your free contract? How do I do this? So if you are in most states for real estate wholesaling, this contract will be good for you. Now, if you're in a state like New York where you need an attorney to write up the contract for you, or let's say in Texas, technically you might be able to get away with this contract in Texas, but in Texas, I'd recommend to use the TREC contract. That's basically the standard one in there. But for most states, this is the right one. So how do I get the free contract? What you need to do is go over to www.flipwithrick.com/contract. Let's just go to flipwithrick.com. We're on the website right here. And what we're going to go here is we're going to go to free content. Now we're in free content here, and we're just going to go here to, we got all this free stuff here, but right now we're just going to go into wholesaling contract. Here is we're going to put our email in so we can get the contract sent to us. And then boom, the contract is going to be emailed to us. Remember, guys, I send out thousands and thousands of these contracts out. So Google might put me on the spam category because I send so many emails out of free contracts to people. So check your spam folder. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Gmail really quick. We're right here. We got the contract and it's right here. So we're going to click download right now and we're going to go download this contract. This is the thick of it. This is the weed of things. Now we got the contract. This is the fun. This is the exciting part here. So now we got this contract here. Now, remember, it does say this. A lot of people do get concerned when they get this free contract and they see this as, it does say this document is for example purposes only. Always seek the advice of a real estate attorney in the state where you're performing transactions prior to utilizing any part of the wording from this example document. So technically, legally, I have to make this as an example document. You need to edit this yourself for your state's rules and regulations. I do not want to be sued. So do whatever you want. This is going to be an entertainment example. So what I'm going to do is just do that. And I'm probably going to go meet a seller right now and use this contract. So take it as you will. That's what I'm doing. So this is the actual contract I use. So this is the purchase and sale agreement. And then below this right here is the assignment of contract. What we need to do is keep these separate from each other. So the purchase and sale agreement is for the seller and the assignment of contract is actually for the cash buyer. The whole entire wholesaling process is I find someone who's motivated to sell their property. They want to sell it for cash. Now, they want to probably give up some equity in exchange for an easy cash sale. They have a lot of work that needs to be done on the property. They don't really want to deal with a realtor and they just want to get rid of this thing and they just want to get rid of the property. So what we're going to do is we're going to go meet them at their house, or if we're doing virtual wholesaling, we'll actually do this over the phone. Now, if you do this in person, before we actually get into this, what I actually like to do is do a pre-filled out part of the contract before I actually get the price in there and sign the contract. Easy as that. If we're doing something virtually, it's all going to be filled out. We'll use Dotloop or DocuSign or something like that. But we have the motivated seller. They're ready to sell. We meet them at the property. We do our close, let's say $100,000. And yes, they said yes to $100,000. Now you got your contract in hand and now you're sweating. Your hands are fidgeting. You're like, this is just like me in my first contract. I'm like, oh no, I got to fill this out. What do I do? So let's get into it. Let's actually fill this out. So this is the purchase and sale agreement. This is what we're going to do for me to put in a legally binding contract with a seller that I agree to buy this property for $100,000. Now remember, we're going to sell this contract to someone else. And also I'm going to give you some tips here on how You're not going to get sued like, oh, you signed that, you need it, now you owe me $100,000. It doesn't work like that. You can get out of it with certain inspection periods and stuff. So we're just going to write this down. So that we're going to say this agreement is made on we're going to do the 22nd of April. And guys, I'm very slow when like filling out my contracts because these are legally binding documents. So I'm very, very careful when it comes to actually getting the stuff done. So let's make this a little bigger here. Here we go. Between the sellers. So let's just put the seller here. Sally Sue. Now remember, if Sally Sue is married, especially in the state of Florida, I'm going to put something like Sally and John Sue. Sally and John Sue. If they're married, I can do that. And the buyers is going to be either, if you don't have an LLC or something, you can just put Zachary Ginn, or we can do Zachary Ginn LLC if that is your LLC. And I would be the buyer in this situation. Now, what I like to do is I actually like to highlight these if I'm pre-filling them out. So it's a little bit easier for me. And 1, 2, 3, Main Avenue. And now if we're actually doing this in person, we're just actually going to write this in if we're not going to pre-fill it. But this stuff I usually will get pre-filled. So what we're going to do here is do Port St. Lucie, Florida. 3, 4. And then the legal description. The legal description will be found on the property appraiser website. It will be like 124 plot land 15 lot 6 or something like that. It's a legal description. You get it from the local tax, from the actual deed of the property, which you can look on the public record there. So we'll put that blank, but it's usually something like 76 lot 3. Thomasville Village. It's something like that. Like it's the legal description on the plot of land there. So what we're going to do here is this where we put our deposit. Now, we average about a $1,000 deposit for our wholesaling real estate deals. But really, if you're a new wholesaler, we're going to make this a lot smaller. At minimum, you should do at least $100. So since we're going to do $100,000, we're just going to do that, and then we're going to put the total price, which is $100,000. Now, next is all the legal mumbo jumbo on there. So let's go over it really quick. The earnest money to be deposited with a licensed title company or attorney within 48 hours of acceptance and ratification of offer. 2, here's the proration, impound, security deposit, loan interest, property taxes, insurance, and rent shall be prorated as the date of the closing. All security deposits shall be transferred to a buyer at closing. All impound accounts for taxes and insurance are included in the purchase price and shall be transferred to buyer at closing. Any shortage of these accounts shall be charged to seller at closing. Basically stating that the seller is going to pay their fair share of their taxes with the proration on there. Next here is the closing date. So when are we doing the closing date? Now, a lot of contracts have it all weird and stuff. I always like to do on or before. That's my personal favorite. So really, some contracts are like, we agree to close this on April 14th or May 1st. Now, what if they want to do it earlier than that? Then it's kind of weird. So what I do is on or before May 1st. Now that gives me a lot more leeway to close it earlier if I can. Now, if I have to do it later, I might have to do an addendum or something. But really, what I do here is May 1st. $2021, and we're going to highlight that section so I know what I changed. Closing will be held at Flip with Rick Title Company. We're going to highlight that one. Now, you could pre-do this one, but the May 1st, 2021, I wait till you're actually on the appointment or you actually negotiated on the virtual wholesaling appointment. Then damage the property. Seller shall maintain property in its current condition. If buyer defaults under this contract, all monies deposited shall be retained by seller as full liquidated damages. If the seller defaults, buyer may pursue all remedies allowed by law and seller to agree to response for all the costs incurred by buyer as a result of the seller's default. This helps us in a lot of ways. Now, if I default on the contract, which means after the actual inspection period and I keep going on it, they have the right to my deposit. Now, if I have an inspection and I say I don't like it, I'm allowed to keep my $100. But this part, it's a little bit of leeway I give to the seller. But the better leeway we get as buyers here is if the seller refuses to close or they want a better price and we just can't do that, we have the legal right to actually keep the property. Might have to do an affidavit. I don't know how your state does it, so be very careful in there. And we can actually protect ourselves. Successors and assigns. This term and conditions of the contract shall bind all successors, heirs, administrators, trustees, executors, and assignees of the respective parties. So let's say, hopefully this never happens to you or any of your sellers, but let's say we have a seller, they're 42 years old, and they unfortunately pass away in a car crash. And it was an amazing price, and then the son comes through and says, you know what, you try to screw my dad, and this property should sell with the realtor for $105,000. And they will refuse, and they say, we're not closing with you. Well, they signed a contract, and they agree that all the heirs to the property has to go with us. So that protects us in that situation. This is why I prefer to use my free wholesaling contract, because it does protect on a lot of crazy stuff. So it's very, very safe. Number 7 here is access. Seller agrees that buyers may advertise property and have access during reasonable hours to show property to others. Now, this is an interesting one. I see no contracts do this, but I put that in there so I'm as protected as possible, especially when I'm wholesaling these real estate deals. Not a lot of gurus do it. I have a feeling after I release this video today that these gurus are going to start putting it in their free wholesaling contracts. But remember, this is what we do. This gives me the moral right, more or less, to advertise the property. I could technically do it without them, but they agree that I'm allowed to do that, so I can throw this thing on a for sale by owner on Zillow or maybe a Facebook marketplace, and I legally have a right to do that. So just in case they come back and they use that as a reason why they want to get out of the contract. Now, I'm always going to ask them for their permission, but it's just another thing that helps me out here. Number 8, the most important part so we can make our money as wholesalers, is this contract is assignable by the buyer. The 7 words here help us sell the contract. Amazing. Number 9 here is the inspection period. So this is basically the period where we get our out clause, more or less. This is when we can actually get out of the contract if we feel like it within that certain date. And after that, we're basically locked in after the inspection period. So I like my inspection periods 14 to 30 days. So let's do 30 days on this one. And we're going to highlight that one. And that gives me about 30 days if I want to get my $100 back, basically, and find a buyer. So remember, guys, always come in there with the intention to buy it, and you should. But if you have to get out during something crazy, let's say a hurricane happens, day 15, and you just got to get out of the contract, you can get out of it from there. Additional terms and conditions you can put in there. Sometimes you might put something if there's a tenant in place and you got to get the tenant out. Buyer agrees to close once tenant is vacated from the property. And then the underside have read above the information. The undersigned have read the above information, understands it, and verify that's correct. Date, seller, they'll put that. So Sally Sue and then John Sue will put it on there, and then buyers will be me. And we'll put the date there. Now, if it's an LLC, I'll literally sign it Zach Ginn. And on the bottom, I'll say for Zach Ginn LLC. That's just the way I do it. That's the way I like it. I put my middle initial in there, and then that's it. Now, once we get under contract, we start selling it to our actual cash buyers. Next here is we actually want to sell this contract. I mean, unless we actually want to buy it ourselves. So what are we going to do when we actually want to sell this contract? We're actually going to assign this contract to the cash buyer for money. That's what we want to do, guys. And the purchase and sale agreement is very important, but if you get the assignment of contract wrong or the wrong guru gives you your assignment of contract, the cash buyer might be able to screw you out of the deal, and you have no legal ramifications to protect yourself or sue them to get your money back. I've seen too many guys lose tens of thousands of dollars due to greedy cash buyers because they use their local guru's assignment of contract, who does not do 7 figures in profit every single year. And I play no games when it comes to my cash buyers, and I have the most protected contracts possible. So this is the contract that you have to pay $5,000 to $7,000 in a wholesaling mastermind or a wholesaling course to get this super protected stuff. And I'm just giving it to you for free because screw these gurus, right? Like I'm trying to put them all out of business here. So this is the free stuff that you guys get. Remember, this is $7,000 of value I'm giving for free here. So this is the assignment of contract. We're basically selling this, our original purchase and sale agreement here. We're actually selling that to the cash buyer. So really quickly, this is very, very simple. Now remember guys, we are the assigner and the cash buyer is the assignee. I'm going to say that one more time, that we are the assigner. We're giving this contract, and the assignee is the person who's getting the contract in exchange for money. Assigner is us. Assignee is the cash buyer. Make sure we get that right. The agreement is, now it's not going to be me. It's going to be my LLC that'll do this. So Zach Ginn LLC, whatever LLC you have, an assigner, which is and let's just say PSL Home Builders Incorporated is the cash buyer here. I don't even know if that's a real company. The assigner and assignee mentioned together refer to as parties. The assigners entered an agreement to purchase real estate with, we're going to put Sally and John Sue. Oop, did I do that right? Then we're going to put the legal description there, so I'll just copy it from here. Terms and agreements. Assigner assigns all rights he acquired under the contract to assignee. Assignee accepts all terms and conditions of the contract. Assignee has reviewed the contract, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A. Assignee fully understands the terms and conditions in the contract and represents to assigner that is willing and able to close the underlying transaction. Number 3 is assigner will deliver to assigner a cashier's check, money, or wire transfer as a deposit in the amount of, I like to do at least $3,000, so we'll do $3,000 in this situation. As an initial deposit. So if they try to screw us out of the deal, we keep $3,000 and we find another cash buyer. That's the way we want to do this. Number 4 here is the assigner will pay the assigner a total assignment fee of, so whatever it is. So let's say they agree to buy this for $120,000 and we put on a contract for $100,000. That means we get $20,000 and then the seller gets $100,000. So we'll put $20,000. It's about the margins. That's a pretty healthy margin right there. That's a pretty good payday for us. That's what we love to do. And at 5 year, at closing, the assigner will receive $20,000 of the assignment fee. Now, why do I put this on here? That seems kind of confusing. Now, not everyone does this, but I do this sometimes. Find a cash buyer. I'll actually find another wholesaler who will sell this for $130,000. That's pretty good, right? That means I'll get my 20 and they get 10. So let's say the total assignment fee is $30,000. I'll probably add an extra line here that the assigner gets $20,000, and then I'll put AV Dude LLC gets $10,000. You just got to put an extra line on there if you can, but this just shows that I get that amount of the assignment fee. If you're JVing, this thing makes it a lot easier. That's why I put it in there. And you do enough wholesaling, this should be a complete assignment of contract for you. I just want to make sure the cash buyer understands, the title company understands, and I understand, so there's no discrepancy. There's no wishy-washy like I didn't know about X, Y, and Z. I do a little worksheet inside the contract. It makes it so much easier. This is how I do it as a professional wholesaler doing this. So the purchase price in the underlying transaction is $100,000, right? Now our assignment fee is $20,000. Now their deposit is going to be $3,000 that they give to us. So that means the cash buyer at closing is going to owe around $117,000. Now they actually owe the $120,000, but they gave me $3,000. So they gave me a $3,000 deposit. So they'll owe $117,000 and I'll get a check for $20,000 and then the seller will get their $100,000. So it's all perfect. Now remember, this deposit, it'll be part of my assignment fee there, which is awesome. So that is how you actually do the little worksheet there. The assignee will close the underlying transaction on or before. If I'm doing May 1st, I'm going to put April 30th just so I'm protected. Just in case they don't close, I have at least some leeway on there. Sometimes I'll put the 27th. Sometimes I'll put the 23rd, 24th on there, just so I have a week in between if a worst case scenario happens. But that's what you can put on there. And then if the assignee fails to close by the date indicated, assignee will forfeit their deposit. That means they agree that we get our deposit. If there's ever a legal battle on there, basically the judge will say, read line 8. Did you agree? Did you sign? Yes, I did. Give Zach his $3,000. That's how basically it'll work, because you have that line protect you. Number 9 here, if the assignee attempts to communicate to the sellers in any form, it will immediately terminate this agreement and forfeit their deposit for liquidated damages. So if the cash buyer tries to go behind my back and steal this deal from me, guess what? Contract's null and void. I get my $3,000 and I bring it to another cash buyer, because cash buyers can ruin a deal like that. Number 10 here is assigner must deliver clear title at closing. Agrees that my deal has to have clear title. If it doesn't, they'll get their deposit back. Just good business. 11 here, the assignee will not contact the seller identified in the contract. Assignee agrees to communicate solely with and through assigner. Again, just making sure. Number 12, at any time before closing, renegotiate the underlying price in the contract with the original seller. Assigner is entitled to an entire difference between the contract purchase price and the assignment. The difference, if any, will be paid as an additional assignment fee at closing. Assigner's negotiation of the purchase price will not affect the total due at closing by assignee. So that basically states if I actually renegotiate for 80, my assignment turns into 40 and they don't get a better purchase price. So if, let's say I agree for the $20,000 assignment and I negotiate 80, technically they would buy it for 100 and I still get my 20 grand if you did not put that in there. So you want to be very careful. If I renegotiate at 80, then I get $40,000. So I get the money if I renegotiate on there. 13 here, the property is sold as is, basically stating the cash buyer understands that whatever happens to this property, it's their problem at it. It's sold as is. 14 here, this agreement is null and void if the deposit of $3,000 is not received on or before April 23rd. And we're just going to highlight that. And boom, there we are. And then the assigner, I'll sign it. The cash buyer assignee will sign that. We'll put the date, time, and print. And what we're going to do is have the cash buyer give our $3,000, give the $3,000 to us. And then boom, we actually sold this thing, made 20 grand. So that's it, guys. That is my purchase and sale agreement and assignment of contract. This is how you fill the stuff out. This is the stuff the gurus want to charge you so much money for. And I just gave you thousands of dollars worth of contracts absolutely for free. Attorneys, I paid them just to get this stuff done. It's amazing, guys. So I really appreciate it. I've used these contracts to make millions of dollars in profit in real estate wholesaling. This stuff's legit. I really appreciate it, guys. If you have any questions at all, comment them below and I'll love to answer it. I answer every comment personally. And remember, if you got any value to this, please smash that like button and subscribe. Thank you guys so much and have a blessed day.